Another day, another episode of this channel. All right, important topic, shame. Like everything, we're talking about two sides of a coin. We've got healthy shame and we've got toxic shame. The other side of the coin, zooming more in, well, actually rather zooming out, of shame is one side is shame and one side is self-acceptance, right? Recognizing your own divinity for existing. So zooming into shameland, I wonder if you've actually heard of the fact that there are forms of shame that are healthy. Often when we think of shame, there's instantly this super negative connotation. But shame, like everything, has a higher octave expression. Always remember that. Whenever you want to just totally demonize something as bad and wrong, ask yourself, all right, is there a higher octave expression of this thing that I'm judging? Be it perfectionism, be it confidence, be it what's something that we normally judge? Well, confidence, right? Like arrogance, and laziness, right? Just try to see the higher octave expression. That's a kind of side note. All right, let's get into it. So, healthy shame. What is healthy shame? We're going to be getting into what toxic shame is as well, and examples of each, and then an invitation for how to transmute or at least address where toxic shame is in your life. Healthy shame is a really natural, constructive feeling that helps us to recognize and correct, so to speak, behaviors that are destructive to ourselves or to others. Okay, it's actually a benevolent force. Healthy shame shapes our moral compass, right? Healthy shame reminds us that we are a finite expression of the infinite. And so it allows us to see that it's a form of self-hate to place unrealistic expectations on ourselves, to play God, so to speak. Like, yes, we are created gods of our universe, so to speak, but to play God of the entire creation, to play the infinite, is what healthy shame allows you to see is foolish. Okay? Not to say that in beautiful mystical experiences that getting access and becoming conscious of the infinite is wrong. No, not at all. That's not what I'm saying. But to live from that state is bypassing the fact that you right here, right now, looking at this video, you are existing in a finite expression. And so you came here to be human. Celebrate that. Full permission to be that. Healthy shame promotes accountability, personal growth, right? Because by your moral compass being shaped, you get a feedback. Let's say of course, all of this stuff is shaped in early childhood, but the healthy shame is essentially what comes through when you've been hurtful towards someone, let's say, and you get that feedback that, oh, this doesn't feel good. I don't like this. I've hurt this person, they're angry at me. Healthy shame. If you didn't feel healthy shame, that's also not healthy. So, have you experienced that? On the other side, we've got toxic shame. So, toxic shame, as I'm sure you've experienced, is a massive blow to the creative spirit. Toxic shame is essentially like an internalized, deeply seated, woven into the psyche perception that we are inherently flawed, that we are inherently not good enough, right? That essentially it's just a pervasive state of feeling broken. So how does this even happen? This is again shaped in those formative years. Somehow, somewhere in that time, there was influences that you experienced, be it from your family, be it from your peers at school, other caretakers, which subcommunicated to you passively aggressively or directly communicated to you that you are stupid, that you aren't enough, that you are worthless, that you're always doing something wrong, or in a more subtle sense, like monkey see, monkey do. So the people you were closest to embodied that. So you kind of mirror neuron that, and then you also start repeating those patterns. I know for myself, like growing up, there was a sort of both overt and subtle rejection of my Lebanese heritage, that it was different. Last name was too different, nose was too big, hair was too curly, eyes were too black, didn't want to be seen as so different, so to speak, which, there's some distance from that time for where I am now. But that was a really real and early example of self-rejection, self-denial. I am not enough being who I am as I am. And if that's repeated enough, which it was for me, and then it was reinforced in the other formative years in various ways, that has led to an undertone of toxic shame. Toxic shame, as I said before, it really is just like this internal unconscious program that runs saying, I am bad, I am broken, everything's my fault, I need to hide my authentic self, basically. And toxic shame always says that you are the problem, right? I know in my own life, but maybe for you too, if you've experienced this, or maybe you haven't become consciously aware of it yet, or even labeled it as toxic shame, but a manifestation of it, on top of what I've said already, is this expectation of persecution, this expectation of things going wrong, this expectation of failure, right? And the expectation of persecution is like things happening around you even, which are seemingly outside of your control, but the toxic shame activates, and then suddenly you're so afraid that, or you even believe that your family goes out for a picnic, it starts raining, oh, it's my fault, I need to apologize. And it's subtle, it's very subconscious, but it's pervasive, right? It's there, it's irrational somehow. Why? Because it got internalized. And when it's internalized, that's like the default program that runs. That's like the filter through which you experience the world and yourself. I've referenced this book a few times, John Bradshaw's book, Healing the Shame That Binds You. If you have the time to read this book, please read it. Whenever we're talking about shame, just read that book. It is full of so much gold, so much insight, and obviously is far more extensive than the scope of this video today. Though in that book, John Bradshaw says, quote, "Hell, in my opinion, is never finding your true self and never living your own life or knowing who you are." End quote. Oof. Toxic shame is the antithesis of embracing your true self. Toxic shame is like the radar which flares up and says, it is not safe to be your authentic self. You are not enough as your authentic self. You need to put on this mask. You need to externalize your worth. You need to people please and harmonize with whoever you're with, right? You just need to blend into the crowd. You being you, no, not okay. How pervasive is that? On a more systemic institutional level, things that can contribute to a sense of toxic shame and internalized feeling of inadequacy, is religion, the education system, various work institutions, right? Racial and ethnic discrimination, ableism, right? Classism, many forms of ism, racism, which is more the ethnic discrimination, but essentially any form of stigmatization, any form of black and white, in-group, out-group. And if you are a kid that was bullied at school, it is a perfect example of how insidious toxic shame is, because the person who bullied you is riddled with toxic shame, overflowing with the stuff. Why? Because that got passed down from their parents, which got passed down from their parents, and so on. That is the power of family constellations, because you actually get the vantage point to see the systemic intergenerational patterns being passed down. It's pretty intense. So what do you do about that? How do you resolve toxic shame? And I must say, it's not necessarily like a direct one-to-one, like you take this form of toxic shame and you take it through the transmutation station and then it pops out into healthy shame. It's like, it's the what we're actually looking at more is like the shame, actually for you guys, it's here. The shame gets then transmuted and enters more into a state of genuine embodied self-worth. That's what we want to work on. We want to work on a state of shame entering into, I accept myself as I am. I am enough. Okay. There are, of course, many ways that you can approach this. There's no one size fits all. For you, if this is just news for you, like you haven't actually even heard of the label of toxic shame or healthy shame, I celebrate you for clicking on this video. That's awesome. You were clearly led here for a reason. So also just researching and actually getting educated on what shame is, understanding how shame even arises in your life, understanding that it is seeded in childhood conditioning, right? From parents, peers, caretakers, and so on. Then actually getting to understand how toxic shame shines through in your life. What is the voice of toxic shame in your life? I know for myself, the voice of toxic shame manifests as this fearful voice that's so afraid of being persecuted. This fearful voice that is like freaking out when there's a seeming state of conflict, and it feels like a clenching around my throat. It feels like a tightening in my heart, a rounding of my shoulders, shallow breath, which is just a really like blatant feeling of not feeling safe and feeling like if I say what I truly want to say, I'm going to get hurt. That's one of the biggest manifestations of toxic shame for me. It leaks and connects into the perfectionist wounding, right? Because toxic shame it's got its hooks in various areas, right? So becoming aware of that is absolutely fundamental. There's not much that you can do if you're not aware of how these things actually manifest in your life and what areas might spark it up a bit more than others. You know, for me, it's quite present in relationships, be it intimate relationships, be it friendships. That's a big area for me. And probably, yeah, when I want to do something that is maybe a little bit different than I've done before, I feel shame can kind of come in of this like super high standards, like the perfectionist sort of side of things, of like shutting down my capacity to just like totally express my creative spark and feel free to share and feel trust that it's allowed, you know? Does that resonate for you? Is that how it comes through for you? If not, all good. It might come through in a different way. So yeah, you want to know the voice. You want to be able to attune to the voice of toxic shame. You know, you want to be able to get to a stage where you can identify it in the heat of the moment, become the observer, see it, get under it, and be like, no, right? Of course, forms of therapy are really, really useful for this. You've got EDMR, you've got hypnotherapy, you've got psychotherapy. I'm a family constellations facilitator, so this is fantastic for addressing the systemic roots of it, which has affected you as the individual. And so being able to disentangle yourself from that. So highly recommend family constellations. Any form of like sincere meditation, right? Which helps you cultivate the observer. If you're someone familiar with plant medicine, for sure this, if you hold it in a ceremonial space, or go into a ceremony and make sure you've sensed that the practitioners and the space holders are actually legit, and that's a whole other thing which is beyond the scope of this video, but right, that can be a fantastic assistance for you. And journaling, right, getting to know what's going on in here, seeing it down on paper, even just setting out on the top of your page, stream of consciousness, toxic shame, and just write as the voice of toxic shame, right? Fantastic way to actually get access to this. So yeah, many ways, right? The point is to start step by step, okay? Project shame is a big project, and especially because we're talking about institutionalized shame. Like we're talking about a worldwide phenomena here. So start with you. Start with a drop. Don't go straight to the ocean. And just, get to know the voice of shame, and then start to disentangle yourself from that through any of the ways that resonate with you. Maybe you're already doing something. Keep going, bringing in that intention specifically. And if you're interested in family constellation sessions, hit me up. We can have a session. Okay, so an aligned action for you is step 1 to first understand the voice of toxic shame. I've repeated this a lot, and it's necessary to repeat it because repetition is the mother of all learning. This is quite simple, and it's what I shared just before. It is to write a stream of consciousness, which is essentially writing down without any like filters. The words don't have to make sense. The sentences don't have to be grammatically correct, right? It's just like a river of energy flowing out of your system onto the page. This bypasses the rational mind, it bypasses the perfectionist, and it gives you a really direct reflection of the kind of internal narrative that's going on. And if you frame it, which you will as this aligned action, as this is the voice of toxic shame in my life, then this is you setting that intention, you set that container, and whatever comes out, trust that that is in alignment with your intention of being a reflection of the voice of toxic shame. Another suggestion, that's the aligned action, by the way, complete. Putting that aside for a sec. Something else that I feel to share is to also just be aware of if there are people in your life, be it friends, co-workers, maybe you've even noticed it from your family. Notice if there are people in your life who overtly shame you or other people, right? Just be aware of that for now. No need to do anything necessarily, but also in addition to bringing the attention within, I invite you to just notice outside too. Because when we are living from a default program of internalized toxic shame, of an internalized feeling of I am not enough as I am, that is you broadcasting that frequency, which draws people and situations that match that frequency to you. Okay? So likely you're connected to people who also are living with toxic shame. Maybe they overtly shame people. Maybe they are overtly shameful towards themselves. Like they're like, oh my God, I'm so stupid. I'm such an idiot. Like, and to heal from toxic shame, at some point it might be useful for you to distance yourself from that, because you don't want to step into rescuer, okay? That's drama triangle city. We don't want that for you. And it doesn't have to be hard and dry, like burn the bridge. I'm not saying that at all. And I'm also not saying you need to do anything straight away. It's simply an invitation to be aware of the manifestations of toxic shame around you. The company you keep, be it people, be it your environment, be it the books you read, the music you listen to, the articles you read, right? This is all the company you keep, the food you eat, right? This is also, just know that this is the ecosystem of you. And so we want that ecosystem on a physical, mental, emotional, spiritual level to be supportive for you, to reinforce that you are enough, to support you and wholeheartedly believing that you are enough as you are. Okay? So read Healing the Shame That Binds You. Listen to guided meditations that bring you into your heart to emanate that, right? That's natural power. That's your natural power reserve. You know, love yourself enough to eat well. Love yourself enough to take stock of your life and see areas where you're not wholeheartedly being yourself, you know, where you are suppressing your light, where you are dulling your creative spark for the sake of avoiding persecution, avoiding pain, right? So, yeah, that's my invitation. Yeah. Big topic, tender, sensitive, but useful because, as I said, like without an awareness of this, it will just continue being a default pattern that continues to attract to you things that reinforce the toxic shame, right? So I really don't want that for you. We're talking about holistic well-being, and this is totally it. Okay, I'll leave it at that for now. Just take a deep breath with me, all right? Let that settle in. Okay, many blessings to you. Thank you for being here. Give this video a like for me. Subscribe to this channel if you want to see more stuff, more goodness. And I will see you soon. Big love.